Good evening. Could you please take your seats? We're about to start the session. And if you kindly close the doors.
Which is a standard.
Order in the house, please. Order, order, order in the house. Thank you very much for the silence. Good evening and welcome to the 2023 OEB plenary debate. I'm Maximilian Jarrett, a new voice and face in this plenary session. As many regulars will acknowledge, the master chairperson of this session for over a decade was our mutual friend, the former UK parliamentarian and OEB council member, Harold Ellertson. Harold first introduced the OEB plenary debate in 2009, and over the years, it has become one of the most popular sessions of this conference. He's set a very, very high bar. I feel that he is with us right now in spirit, and I'm sure that we're set for another spirited, provocative, and hopefully good-humored parliamentary-style plenary session over the next hour or so. My role is simple. As the Mr. Speaker, so to speak, and yes, indeed, pun intended, I'm here just to keep order, keep the debate to time, and oversee the final vote. The stars of the show are the two opposing teams. In favor of the motion, to my left, are Beth Havinga and Tim Unwin. Please give them a round of applause. And he's also clapping. And against the motion, Inge de Waard and Donald Clark, who I had the honor of debating against in another debate several years ago that was calmly moderated by Harold in his unique, fun style. I won't say who won if you don't, Donald. Now, the motion today is, this House believes that the widespread implementation of AI in learning will do more harm than good. And before we get into the debate, because we're going to have a show of hands afterwards to see, where the House is on this, I'd like an idea of who is for the motion in the audience. How many people think that the motion is correct? Could you show your hands, please? Okay, only a couple. All right. Just more than a couple. And who's against? Well, the rest of the House. That's clear then. So it's clear that those against are going to have those four are going to have their work cut out for them to carry this motion. The rules are simple. The format gives all four speakers the chance to make short, informal opening speeches of about 10 minutes in length. And there is a particular feature of this debate that if there's a pressing need, you can intervene if I allow. But hopefully there isn't that pressing a need, but you can use that trump card. And the side in favor of the motion will start with a 10-minute speech. Then this side will respond. Then we'll go back to this side, and we'll go back to this side, and then finally deciding who wants to. Someone from either side will wrap up. They'll have 10 minutes each to make their opening speeches, and there'll be 5 minutes to wrap up. After that, we will turn to the floor, and we'll field questions and comments from you, the audience, before taking a final show of hands. Now, a short disclaimer before we get into it. This is a fun debate. We're here to have fun, but also to, get into it in truly intellectual, sparring manner. In that spirit, please note that the speakers are intellectually sparring tonight on the motion. They do not necessarily, individually, hold the positions that they may be arguing for or against in the session. Now, without further ado, I want to get down to business, and I please urge all the speakers to please keep the time. If you don't, I'll be, pulling you into line and make sure that we keep the show on the road. There are drinks served in the room, so feel free to get up and get yourself another drink if you'd like. They're there. They're on the house. And, without further ado, let's turn to my left. Beth, the floor is yours as the first speaker in favor of this motion. Over to you, Beth.
Thank you so much. So, I'm going to start by saying the only widespread conventions that we can all agree upon globally are some of those of human rights. And the reason why I reference that is because there's an absolute right to education. But in some of the research that I was tasked in doing this summer through the Council of Europe and also the Ministry of Education in Australia, I reviewed 308 principles documents in AI. I reviewed 306 different policy documents that were trying to govern AI. And out of those, there were 5, so just putting that there, 5 globally that actually looked at what it means to have any kind of human dignity put into this debate, what it means for a child's future self to have used any of these technologies, what it means on the effect of life, what it means on the effect of reputation, and your experience in the future, and all of your experiences as part of society. As a mother as well, this has a big impact on me, looking at the human dignity that my children may be able to take with them if there is a widespread implementation of these technologies. And why does that worry me? Because of the lack of regulation. I was in Texas at the start of this year on a topic of AI, and we were talking about the role that government should play in the regulation of AI. Me, coming from my little European background here, was all for a dialogue between different stakeholders, the inclusion of government, the inclusion of all the different pieces of industry and teachers and parents. And then a woman stood up and she said, "I'm a female in Texas. What role should government play in the regulation of AI?" So I started thinking, I was like, look, it's still important. She's like, no. Look at me again. I'm an African-American female in Texas. What role should my government have in deciding what I learn, how I learn it, and how I live in my body in the future? And that's something I want to leave you with as well, because if we look around the world, there are only 16 governments at the moment that provide any kind of curricular inclusion of policy around AI. So that means there's 16 that have anything to do with how we use this at a more widespread scale within education. And there's a lot of pieces around what does exist. So we've got a lot of the industry standing up and saying, we promise to do good. We didn't trust it in Harry Potter, we shouldn't trust it here either. So I think a lot of the reason here is that self-assessment has actually been proven to be bad. It actually has detrimental effects on some of the policy. And a lot of the bodies sit behind that then and say, because we've agreed to do testing and we know where the loopholes are, we are doing good. So trust us, believe us, and work with us. We should not just blindly trust. We do need guardrails for any widespread implementation. And I think we do need to understand that there are bad agents. Are they the majority? No. But even in today's society without AI, if we take that out of the picture, there are enough instances of governments already figuring out what they would like students to learn. There are already instances of governments dictating what can go into textbooks in terms of limiting my knowledge base, limiting what I can do as a certain learner type or a certain learner, limiting what I can do with a disability. And there are also pieces that we need to take into this further debate. If we're talking about the widespread use of AI in learning, the other thing we need to keep in mind is that AI is data. And if you look at the widespread use of data globally, what we see is a massive amount of data coming from North America, a huge amount of data coming from China, little pieces from Australasia, and then a big black hole. And this is what worries a lot of us when we're talking about bias, when we're talking about integration, inclusion, any of those fun things as well. AI is built on the data. It's only as smart as what we're feeding into it. At the moment, it can teach itself things, but it's only building on us. It's building on our reactions at the moment, especially through large language models. Obviously, they're learning through the things that we are talking about with them. And so we need to be very aware of the data inequity and the fact that this will only lead to have a higher digital inequity. And that's something that we've already experienced. So we can definitely not say that there is no harm in the fact that by building on these centers of data, we are increasing that inequity. There's also a lot of other issues that we can look at in terms of autonomous agents that we can then influence, that can run on their own and teach themselves and each other different skill sets. And all they need is one different prompt to dissuade them. We have already systems that severely limit learning, and some of them do so with intent. We have specialized groups that, with enough funding, can create their entire own models. I think over the summer as well, one of my scarier moments was waking up to the lovely tweet, guess not X, from Elon Musk to say that he was about to develop a truth GPT, a fun place to hang out. So I think we need to keep in mind what kinds of inherent biases go into these systems. I mean, even more of a wide-ranging effect as of the last week, considering the drama happening with OpenAI. Things like the widespread change of the ability for boards to even be able to do their work and not be strong-armed out by an NGO management position. In education in general, there is a stunning lack of evidence, and this is a quote. There's a stunning lack of research and evidence to support any of the efficacy of any edtech products. At the moment, there's actually only 7% of products globally that have gone through enough rigorous evidence testing, and that's a quote from Stanford from a presentation that was done last week. If we look at that, that's the current edtech. How can we say that the widespread implementation of AI can do more good than it can harm, when we don't even have the testing in place now for the tools that we have, when we don't even have the regulation in place now for the things that we're trying to do? There's no evidence in edtech at the moment. There is absolutely no evidence in AI in edtech or AI in learning. It's too small. It's nascent, but that's no excuse. There is no evidence at the moment, so we can not actually argue that it can do more good. We haven't actually yet managed a widespread implementation of internet across all learning environments, and we haven't been able to do that with any degree of equity and without contributing further to that extreme level of the digital divide. So how on earth do we think that we can do this with AI? There is, in fact, no plausible way that I can see that the opposition can truthfully posit that the widespread use of AI in learning can do more good than harm, against the background of no evidence, no regulation, limited curricular inclusion, no inclusion of human rights considerations, or let's face it, 5, the blatant targeting of certain groups, and the fundamental lack of equity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did. I did that. Oh, thanks. Very, very strong arguments there, and you heard the applause she got. You know, the emotion. When we did the show of hands at the beginning, there weren't many hands, but I think that based on her very strong, and I'm neutral, but I like to respect, I like to respect strong arguments when I hear them. I think it's a very strong start out the block there from those for the motion. So you've got your work cut out for you. Inge de Waard, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you, Beth, for giving me an introduction for my own talk. Yes. So, if you're an educator, please say yes. Yes. I count 20 educators. That's my fault. I'm really sorry. I will rephrase. If you are working in education and you are a teacher, a researcher, an innovator, and you're passionate, if you're passionate, please say aloud, yes? Yes. Absolutely, I'm in the right room. And I, as well, am a teacher. Yes. Now, teachers are famous for many things, most of all our capacity to think critically and to come up with facts, dear Beth. Fact 1. AI is a power disruptor. and we rise above because of it. Yes, think back, Greenpeace, little boats at best, sometimes just in the sea, and you try to get your attention for climate. It was in the 80s, the 90s, and if you were successful, you were a segment in the news, climate. Or think back on the women's movement, 4 generations now. And first generation, we ask votes. Second generation, we are free. Third generation, cyber. Fourth generation, diversity, and still working on it for over 4 generations. So yes, there's a power thing going on. There's a divide. Or think about the black movement. For more than 200 years, they shout, hey, it's discrimination. Please listen to us. We want a seat at the table, and rightfully so, for inclusion, for diversity. But are they getting it? No. Simply because the powers that be say, yeah, but if you really want to sit at our table, you can. Or they say, you say you're discriminated against, but please show us the numbers. And so we came up with quota or other like basic numbers until, and please take notes well, until the rise of AI. And all of a sudden, the old face of power, not Beth, not Max, but, you know, white, heterosexual, kind of older, was torn to pieces thanks to these magnificent women, young women in AI. Yes, there are biases. Look at Joy Boilamwini. She came up with Coded Bias, a documentary, just 3 years ago. Only 3 years ago, and now we can see that the biases are being tackled. And where does she come from? Ghana, Canada, America. Or let's look at Timnit Gebru, who comes from Eritrea. She also says, look, we need to research AI to make it better for all the different contexts, because yes, there's a digital divide, and no, I mean, Beth clearly showed it, there are multiple divides, but now we have a chance to change them within a lifetime. These young women are doing it. We even have a godmother of AI, Fei Li. And last week, Mira Murati, many times in the news. So yes, AI is a power disruptor. Fact 2. Are you with me on fact 1? Yes. Fact 2. Please, give us more than the education of citizens, because each of these women is an educator. Fact 2 is AI speeds up innovation, and it speeds up creativity. Look at course creation, curricula. If you're using a chatbot, you used to have the power to code. Now you can just build it and say, look, don't just go crawling on the internet, because yes, hallucinations will happen. No, stick to this part of my content as a teacher. Students can be given personalized learning help due to that, or use tools, AI tools, to create your courses. Of course, we need to still think critically, but we're teachers, we're educators, we know what it is. And now we can say to our students, think critically, and if you think critically, you can grow and build a career like these women. So, another good option for AI is solution finding. Example of my own organization, in 2 weeks' time, we took engineering students on a 2-week data course, and at the end, they came up with energy efficiency for a smart building owned by Schneider Electric. And these students, in 2 weeks' time, and so not data scientists, but engineers, outperformed their professionals in terms of efficiency. So yes, it makes a difference, and its impact. Or diversity, once again, coming back to you, Beth, who is also very good at writing guidelines, which basically says, I believe in AI, because with guidelines, it'll become safe to use. So thank you for the guidelines. The diversity aspect is, of course, important, but thanks to curricula like Breakthrough Tech AI, people from around the world can come, don't have to pay for the course, a master course, and get really taught in the ways of AIs and be critical about it. Or dream creation. The moonshot approaches use AI to really come up with solutions that are much more advanced than we could ever imagine. One example, the Spring Institute, very much of a fun initiative, if you can. It's Forests on the Moon, it's called. Really great. You can even buy a vacuum box with to take home, let's say. It's really exciting. And they use people from all around the world to add to this project. In Africa, they are really good and creative at, for instance, green nature, climate neutral tourism, green solutions. So what does the Spring Institute do? They go there to Kigali, Rwanda. They say, look, have a hackathon, come up with the best solutions. And they do it at several places around the world using AI. So yes, AI hasn't been around that long to get really generative AI evidence, but it makes a difference. It has impact. There are small pockets of evidence-based data on the effectiveness of AI. So I'm saying, fact 2, AI speeds up innovation and creativity in education. So wrapping up, 2 facts. AI does disrupt power, but finally, we can see an impact in 1 generation's time. We can say we embrace the world for the first time in history. Fact 2, AI speeds up innovation. You can't deny it. And of course we need evidence, but that is being processed right now. So, I call upon you all critical thinkers, teachers, educators, trainers, researchers, to vote against the motion of the House, because widespread AI will actually benefit education and all citizens. Thank you very much.
Give her a big round of applause. Inga de Waal, very animated, speaking there against the motion. But I just want to repeat the motion and underline what it is that this House has before it tonight. And the motion is, this House believes that the widespread implementation of AI in learning will do more harm than good. So we're not here tonight to argue the merits of AI. We're really arguing about whether it will do more harm than good. So I'd like to turn the floor now to Tim Unwin to speak for the motion as the second speaker. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the Honourable Lady opposite for a wonderful presentation. As you have rightly pointed out, Mr. Speaker, not on the motion. Could we have your first slide again, please? Is it possible to get the first slide back up? While we're doing that, you have a distinct advantage over us. No, not that one, the first slide of the Honourable Ladies. You have a glass of wine in your hands, if you like wine. I was just wondering, might the servers over there bring my distinguished colleagues opposite a glass of wine to refresh them as they have to endure my performance here before you this evening. We're not getting that slide. We'll move on rapidly because I'm running out of time already. But it did say would benefit education. That is not the motion.
It says learning, not education.
Can we have the slide again?
Can we please find the slide
yeah,
that was used by Inga? Inga's slide, can we have it up?
But neither here nor there. It did not address the more than. We on this side believe passionately that AI has its place in education. It's important for education for all the reasons we've heard so far. Will benefit education. So the honourable gentleman opposite, it is not learning. She said it will benefit education. The point is, I hope, well taken. I need not spend longer on this, Mr. Speaker. But widespread is also in the motion undefined. How wide is wide? And more for my concern is that it doesn't say anything about more harm or more good, for whom or for what. Those in the digital tech sector who are investing lots of money in AI are desperately keen that it will definitely do good. It will improve their profits, their markets. But will it actually serve the benefits of the poorest and the most marginalized learners in this world? That's the question that is before us. Jury is out, she says. Yes, but as we will come on to my 2 or 3 points I'm going to make, if the jury is out, what should our response be? And for what? For what? Just think of the harm that digital tech is doing to the physical environment. Training, the latest figures I've seen is that training one AI model generates carbon dioxide equivalent to 300 round trips from New York to San Francisco. And that's let alone the subsequent use. So there are harms to the environment. I'm not going to focus on them for too long. I would like to address the very important points the Honourable Lady made. You said it was a power disruptor. Yeah, fantastic. It certainly is a power disruptor for electricity and the environment, isn't it? Yeah, we're not going to have the power to run it. But a little more seriously, although that is serious enough, power. Who is going to get the power? Is it the learner? Is it the global corporations mining the data to generate their models? Are we as teachers and learners really going to have the power? I will leave that to your imagination. But let me focus just on 4 brief points, and they build a little bit on what my honourable colleague has shared with you. Say a little bit about the precautionary principle, madam, in response partly to your points, about actually what learning and education are about, and how AI is changing that or reinforcing it. A little bit on memory. Mine's going, so I don't know about yours. But then about, again, the point my honourable colleague was able to say, on bias, brainwashing, and trust. So, firstly, the precautionary principle. It's very difficult to see up here, but how many parents are in this room? How many grandparents? Well, you are wonderfully young. I was first here in 2002, and I programmed in Fortran in the 70s. I'll say a little bit more about what I did before that towards the end, because it has relevance to what I have to say here. But if there is a chance that AI could harm your children or your grandchildren, are you willing to take that chance? If you aren't willing to take that chance, can you support the motion opposite? And many of those, much more distinguished than I am, much more distinguished, I think many of us in this room are, have warned about the future risks of AI. Remember that letter, was it 30th of May, when 350 of the leading executives and researchers warned about AI? Do you want your children to take that risk? And in my country, safeguarding has become a critically important issue. Vulnerable adults and children. How are we going to keep our children safe? We just don't yet know, do we? As Beth honorable colleague has said, the evidence isn't there for us to be able to make that judgment. Secondly, let me move on to say a little bit about learning and education. I think when I struggled with how to pose this for you, I was reflecting on how we see education. People in this room, you're the leaders of digital tech in learning and education. The examples you give are inspirational, but they're not the examples I see working with out-of-school youth in parts of Africa, with women in patriarchal societies, with refugees, with teachers having to struggle in an African school without any electricity. And something that worries me at all levels of the education system is education has become, partly through digital tech, primarily about the regurgitation of accepted knowledge. What is AI? Is it not a regurgitation of data accepted knowledge in the past? Is it not going to reinforce one of the deep failings of our education systems? Or do we want education, as many people have said, and as the honourable lady opposite said earlier yesterday as well, we want education to deliver that wonderful, creative learning, that human spirit that will change the world and make it a better place. Will AI do that? And paradoxically, I think we can see, you can judge, but is AI actually merely reinforcing the systems, this focus on learn and repeat, or actually not even learn, push the button because it's easier? Certification has become the main driver in education across much of the world. There is widespread cheating. I could regale you with hundreds of examples of cheating in the university system in one of my countries, Britain. That is so much easier now, just push the button. You do not have to learn. You do not have to memorize anything. Do we want humans to be turned into machines by AI so that AI can then replace them from their jobs? Surely, colleagues, friends, distinguished, honorable opposition, we want our learners and ourselves as learners to be sentient, loving, human, thinking, critical beings. And now let me say a little bit about memory and then on bias and brainwashing. On memory, I hope most people in this room agree that memory is crucial to how we function as learners, as poets, as lovers, as friends, as creative thinkers, as people who want to make the world a better place. Both my parents died of dementia. One, it took a decade, one, it took a year. What is dementia? It is a loss of memory. If you can push a button and get all the knowledge you want in the education system, you do not need a memory. What are we therefore in danger of creating? Is the future of the widespread, not using it just a little bit, but the widespread use of AI, is it going to lead to generations of learners who have no memory, who don't have the enjoyment of citing a verse of poetry? Maybe we could do that at the end. Who would like to cite a stanza of a poem? Can we do it even? We could instead just go to ChatGPT and get it produced. And then what when we are disconnected, when the plug is pulled out? How can we function in the real world? All of us in our lives are going to find an opportunity when we cannot connect. And then finally, a little bit on the harms of bias and brainwashing. The companies developing AI are not very good at being transparent, are they? Do we know what they've actually drawn their data from? No, not very well. Do we know exactly how they're training them, what the algorithms are? But most of the data, as we know, is produced in the richer parts of the world. It's not produced in Africa or South Asia or the Pacific Islands. These models are being trained on a particular cultural basis, be it models in China that we've heard about, models in the USA. I think there's a great lacuna here in Europe. Why are we not developing those as oppositions? But biases are present in all of these systems. And the algorithms themselves are built on biases. Can you learn how to make explosives through ChatGPT? It's very difficult.
Tim,
Because
Tim, you have
ChatGPT,
just a minute.
yeah, ChatGPT and other LLMs, you can manipulate them, but if you just try and do it for some experiments we did with a group of young school children, they couldn't find out. I was taught how to make explosives at school in the 1960s. It's much easier to do it then than it is now. So to conclude, I hope you're already of the view, those of you who wisely perhaps put your hands up in support of the opposition, that AI is causing a little bit more harm than good, and we don't actually know how much that little bit is. So do not listen to the very eloquent speech that we're going to get next. Forget the irrelevant speech you've just heard, and think about your children, the future generations, what widespread use of AI will do, and who it will benefit. It'll benefit the owners, the power relationship, as my colleague was saying. We will say more when we've heard the very distinguished honourable gentleman next. Thank you for listening, and I hope some of you, we may just have changed your minds a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim Unwin.
Is that okay?
Now, all I can say is to the House that if you were not afraid before, you might be very, very scared now, having heard that. So I turn now to the second speaker against the motion. Many of you know him. Many of you have heard him. He is a debater of renown. Donald Clark, the floor is yours to speak as the seconder against the motion. Over to you.
Thank you, and good evening. My good friend Tim made the audacious claim that my colleague got the proposition wrong, the motion wrong, then proceeded to get it wrong himself. He should have looked up ChatGPT. I knew he was going to get it wrong, which is why I underlined both the things he got wrong before it came on the stage. I knew that we'd get it wrong. First of all, it's not the regurgitation of data. He doesn't know what AI is, actually. AI has been around for 23 years. It's highly mathematical. It's complicated. It involves algorithms, all sorts of statistical techniques, 2,500 years of mathematics in the thing. It's the regurgitation of data. No, it isn't. He also claimed it was about education. These guys are stuck in education. We leave university when we're about 20. Half the population, most of the world, don't even go to university. We learn when we go into the workplace. I'm 66. I haven't been on a course for 40 years. I've learned a lot. These guys are stuck thinking that it's all about education. Look at the proposition. It's learning. The 100 million people who are using ChatGPT are not students. They're all the people around the world who are in the workplace, using it to do real things in real jobs. Let's suppose this debate took place 22, 23 years ago, when OEB first started. These guys would say, do we want Google? Oh, more harm than good. Would you like Google Scholar? Are you joking? The harm it will do to us. Are you kidding me? That's what you would have said back then. AI will do more harm than good. Beth talked about disability. Do you know any blind people? Do you know how wonderful text-to-speech is for blind people? Do you know how wonderful speech-to-text is for deaf people? It changes their lives. I gave a talk in the RNIB where there were blind dogs. It's incredibly moving when you hear people speak about this technology that's on their smartphones. It lifts them out of loneliness. And look at this was a tweet from somebody I know, Laura, this morning on Twitter. It was a school that had used eye movement technology, that's AI, to help children speak. The mum said, you don't know what it's like to hear your 10-year-old son, who has never spoken, an autist child, say the words, I love you. Think about that. the position of that mother. I defy you to hear that and remain a technology skeptic. But these people would want to stop this. They would. They want to stop that. Are you kidding me? So we have this amazing piece of technology. You know, often here, engagement, Donald, engagement. We need to engage learners. And then we give them all that sort of cartoonish speech bubble, text, graphic, multiple choice question stuff. And we wonder why people don't like it. Along comes the technology. And within 5 days, 1 million people are using it. No marketing budget. Within 2 months, 100 million of people are using it to learn. And we talk about engagement. Oh yeah, these guys would like us to go back to speech bubbles and cartoons and articulate or whatever you're doing in your e-learning these days. 1 billion monthly users who are using it to learn. We have never seen, I've waited my whole life for this technology. Suddenly we have it, and these guys want to stop it. And this is the worst it'll ever be. This is the worst. It's not even 1 year old. It was launched during OEB last year, November the 30th. We're not even at November the 30th. It's still a baby, and it's doing amazing things. 1 billion uses a month. Crazily exciting. Another thing these guys would like to stop, so in the area of healthcare, a guy called Demis Hassabis actually came up with an algorithm, not the regurgitation of data. So it takes about 4 or 5 years to get the structure of one 3D protein. He came up with an algorithm that saved us 1 billion years of research. 1 billion years of research. These guys would want to stop that, of course. And I've heard this story all my life. It goes back to Plotius in the 3rd century BC. This guy thought the sundial would be the end of civilization as we know it. He had a point, splitting the hours. You know, if you work in an office 9 to 5, that's not good. Printing, the Ottoman Empire wanted to ban that one. They made it punishable by death. That's the side these guys are on. They would have banned it. Bicycles were blamed. My God, for use insanity. Aeroplanes, they would have banned them if we had debated that about a century ago. Aeroplanes are a fad.
Mr. Clark, you have a glass of
The
wine
Telegraph.
offered to you by...
Cheers, sir. I prefer white. The Telegraph, a catastrophe for the globe. The telephone, the terrain. A can opener and telephone blamed for the lost art of baking in homes. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. The radio comes along, blamed for everything. Radio's blamed for the world's freak weather, even climate change. Radio addict subject to the softening of the brain. Television, exactly the same. Addiction. TV, drug addiction, similar. Psychiatrist. And then we're getting jazz. They wanted to ban jazz, these people. Then they wanted to ban rock and roll. Then they wanted to ban rap. It's the same old story, isn't it, guys? The same old story. We never learn. Walkmans? This is
Donald, there's an intervention here.
Just go back a slide. Is this your wrapping up?
My what?
Is this your wrapping up?
No, it isn't. That's WRA.
Ah, thank you.
You can go on and learn English on ChatGPT these days. It actually corrects your spelling. Walkman's a menace. Typewriters, Romania banned typewriters. You had to get actually a license from the government to use a typewriter because they thought it was the end of copyright. Ooh. Photocopying, I actually remember when this happened, when universities banned photocopiers because they thought it would destroy academic copyright. What a stupid thing to say, of course. Calculators, they were going to destroy mathematics. Computers and Entex, do we really need home computers? No. Until it can do the dishes, home computers remain of little value to families. Apple Wizard says computing fad is dying. That didn't happen, did it? Even Wikipedia was banned by educators. Same old story. This happened. I remember it. Schools and universities banned it and blocked it. The greatest knowledge base our species has ever produced, and we banned it for students. Are we crazy? And of course, throughout history here, it's been logarithmic. printing, writing, printing. These things liberated us as learners, democratized learning. Along comes ChatGPT, and it's not the regurgitation of data. This is the sum total of human culture around the globe captured in one place. When we speak to ChatGPT, we are not speaking to a machine, we're speaking to ourselves. This is why when you use it, you go, holy shit, that's great, that's wonderful. Those are, you know that epiphany you have when you use it? Do we want to really ban that? The EU are thinking about banning it. 5.8% of the world's population, but they think they're going to police us all. I don't think so. It would take you 22,000 years, 8 hours a day, to read the training data for ChatGPT 3.5. 22,000 years. Do you think you're going to catch up? No. And the wonderful thing about this is, for the first time, this paper had the great definition of the perfect learning technology. Low floor, high ceiling, wide walls. Google's a good example. Really easy to use. You just type it in. ChatGPT, you just type something in. Really high ceiling. Holy shit, gives you all this stuff back. Wide walls, it knows everything. For the first time on the horizon, we have what Papert called a knowledge machine, which could teach you anything, at any time, in any language, anywhere in the world, for next to nothing. And we want to bin it and ban it. OEB. I slept in this morning, I have a confession. I came into the second keynote. I came in, I thought I was in a dream. She was actually recommending we go back to use pencils. I couldn't believe it. I said, hold on. It is called online educa. Online educa. It's not called offline educa. I think she had wandered in. I think it was a conference over in the other hotel called offline educa. She should have been there. And let me finish. This is me. This is not me, actually. It's a digital twin. It's an avatar. Let's hear.
I am Donald's digital twin, and I'm pleased to be here in Berlin. Yes, artificial intelligence can be used to deliver at low cost. Personalized learning, anywhere, at any time, on any subject, at any level, in hundreds of languages. Don't be fooled. Vote against the motion. I'll finish in Zulu.
So I said there I'm going to finish in Zulu. I've been in Africa twice this year, in Senegal and South Africa. And for my good friends who I know here in South Africa, I was in Durban with them.
Donald, you're really out of time.
So. Okay, my last statement. I was in Durban, and some of the audience were black kids who spoke Zulu as their first language. Amazingly, throughout Africa, these guys would like us to continue teaching in English and French, like a colonial 2.0. Yeah. So I said, I'll speak Zulu. I can't speak Zulu, but Digital Don can speak Zulu.
Donald, in Zulu, please. Wrap
Ngiyabonga
up.
kakhulu ngokulalela. Ingabe ukhona onemibuzo?
Thank you very much for listening. That's what I just said there. Thank you.
Donald Clark giving us 2 for the price of 1 tonight, and I think you kind of cheated a bit by, bringing that in, but we'll let it go. And just to be very clear, we're not here talking about banning anything. This motion is not about banning. Again, it's about whether AI and learning will do more harm than good. I'm going to give both sides now wrap-up moments. So turning to the left, who is going to wrap up for the motion? Over to you, Beth. You have not more than 5 minutes, please, to wrap up, because then we're going to go to the floor. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable colleague asked a really personal question just then, and I think you saw me put my hand up. He asked, who's blind? Last year, I suddenly went blind in my left eye. Due to a medical mystery, I am still blind in my left eye. What has it taught me? I need to trust. I need to have something I can trust in. Do I sometimes kick my kids by accident because they're on that side? Yes. Have I hit them with a door by accident because it was there? Yes. But we're not going to get into that. What I do need to have is trust. I need to trust when I'm walking on the street that the people next to me are not nefarious and trying to hurt me. I need to trust text-to-speech, that what I'm hearing, I can actually believe. What I'm hearing, I can keep giving. Because my life has gotten so much more difficult. What isn't helpful are tools that I can't trust. What isn't helpful is something that is telling me something that is not true. And I would ask that we think very strongly about whether or not the tools that I have right now available to me and the tools that are available to my children as we learn in our lifelong learning journeys, whether or not they can be trusted in the way that I need them as someone who is blind. We talked a lot about the speed to users. And I think following on that trust piece, I'm sure that some of us may have heard as kids, if Johnny jumps off a cliff, will you jump off with him? I think we need to maybe not do the mass following and actually have some critical thought going into whether or not we do want to become one of those 10.5 million users. And talking about speed as well, it doesn't help us if innovation is sped up, if the educators, if the learners are not able to keep up with that pace, if the skill sets that those learners have are not able to keep up with that pace. Let's talk about the fact that in certain countries, especially within Europe, up to 74% of kids up to the age of 15 cannot distinguish the difference between fact and opinion, and yet 96% of them get their information from social media. How much of social media is now being propagated by AI? Let's look into that. And I think that's something where we can really, really strongly question the good in AI. We've talked about AI as a power disruptor. It will disrupt power. Without any kind of oversight or regulation, those who will be going into power will be those that can afford to go into power. Let's not mince words here. Those who are developing some of the biggest AI systems, and there is a race on to be the OS of AI, they are the ones with the really, really deep pockets. And let's ask ourselves very clearly, is Elon Musk really the person we want running our lives, or can we just let him go and play with rockets and leave us alone? I think in terms of looking at diversity, I'm a woman in AI. I also very, very, very strongly support women in EdTech. But if we're going to look at those incredible women that were shown, 1.7% of women get funding in education technology and in AI and technology for education. That's 1.7%. So let's talk about those amazing 4 photos that we could show on a slide. Why aren't there hundreds? Why aren't there thousands? Because we don't have the agency yet. We don't. There aren't yet. There unfortunately aren't. And it's something that I work with every single day. The cost of development is huge, but I think there's other things that we need to look at as well. I think, as hard as it breaks me, Donald, it's a little bit too soon to talk about offline educare. It was only a couple of years ago with COVID. So looking in terms of that as well, it was nice to have a history lesson, and I'm really grateful as well for you to go back to your own roots in sort of the 1900s and be able to sort of bring us up to speed there. But I think the fact is, if AI has been around for this long, which it has for 25 years, where is the evidence that it does more good? Because that is what we were here for tonight. Not about benefits of AI in education, not about ChatGPT, not about anything else except the evidence of, does it do more harm than good? And even though there were some really, really cool images, and I love the gimmicks, did the opposition truly help to convince you that the technologies do more good than harm? Wikipedia is a great example, but did he convince you tonight that AI does more good than harm? And again, as the Honourable Speaker said, we're not here to talk about banning. We're talking about good versus harm. We're talking about the facts that we have before us today to help us make the informed decision about how we want to be shaping the learning journeys and our learning environments of the future. And so I think, again, there is truly no way, having been presented with facts versus really lovely pictures, that we can really agree that the widespread implementation of AI in learning can do more good than harm. So I ask you to join me in the only sensible conclusion that the widespread, and again, widespread, not small-scale studies that have been taking place, widespread implementation of AI in learning currently does more harm than good. And we do not have evidence to state otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth. She started strong and she finished strong. So those for the motion have rested their case, and now we turn to those against. And Donald Clark is going to wrap up. for those against.
At least you got the motion right now and didn't say education as opposed to learning. Well, no, all your arguments the first time round were all education. It's as if nobody existed in the workplace.
Donald, just let her jump in to just intervene briefly. Please clarify. Clarify?
Yeah, can I jog your memory with the cards that have, the only mention of education was the right to education, which is one of the human rights conventions.
Yes, okay.
Everything else is all around learning.
Well, as the head of the EdTech consortium, I think consortium might be an exaggeration if you're going to ban anybody who uses AI, because it's already in almost every tool we use. And the real key question here was, will it do more harm than good? My argument was that the evidence I used in my presentation is that it's already done a huge amount of good. I did postgraduate work many, many years ago and spent hours, if not days, walking miles and miles up and down library shelves looking for Elsevier and Springer papers. The people, by the way, who are now pushing for high-end regulation in Brussels are Springer and Elsevier. They have a lot to lose from this. And I remember when Google Scholar came in, and I use it every day. I've written 5 books. I've used it for all my citations. It's a wonderful thing. Wikipedia is a wonderful thing. Search is a wonderful thing. In healthcare, I'm getting older now. I go to the doctor more often. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. I coughed up some blood a few weeks ago. I had already worked out the songs in my funeral. It was so terrifying. Now imagine the misdiagnosis rate for a doctor at present is 5%. It sounds worse when you say 1 in 20. Okay, so if I go to the doctor, I've got a pain in my chest, the doctor might say, oh, it's just reflux, Donald. If that's a mistake and I have a heart attack, I'm gone. Okay, 5% misdiagnosis rate across the whole of Europe and US. Supposing ChatGPT or a similar model comes up with something that's 2%, you'd be stupid to go to your doctor. You'd be irrational. But that will happen. It's already eating into the investigative side on radiology and mammograms. It's already succeeding there. It will succeed in clinical decision-making. It will. And this is true in education, I feel, as well. We talked about the climate change thing. You know that DeepMind reduced all data center energy uses by 30% on the back of one algorithm. Fusion is now being accelerated by the use of AI in the management of the plasma that leads to fusion, which would solve the energy crisis. Do you know why, we talked about social media there, you know why you don't get dick pics in your email?
It's okay.
AI.
Not a minute.
It's true. Do you know what really protects people online and young people? I gave a presentation to the police in Europe last week, and they were terrified that AI was going to ban because it's the major tool in protecting young children from being exploited, trafficked, and used in porn. And this is the danger here. If we listen to this more harm than good argument, we will be throwing the baby out with the bathwater and the bath.
Donald, you have a minute.
I'm not going to use my minute. I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
So there we've had it from both sides, giving their views on the motion. It's time now to hear from you in the audience, what your thoughts are before we take the final vote. So show of hands, please, in terms of someone who wants to say something. And we get a mic. I think we get a microphone to you. I can't really see who's putting their hand up at the moment. Okay, the microphone is there in the middle of the aisle. Anyone? Any initial comments to share? Don't be shy.
You could all say how right we were.
Yeah, you could. Right, in the front row, second row here. Gentleman with the white shirt.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this super exciting discussion so far. The only thing I have in mind still is when we talk about AI doing more harm than good, is the immense harm it does on the environment, not only by the amount of energy it spends to train one of these models, but also the infrastructure, the computational infrastructure that we need to build and throw away and ends up in wastelands in Ghana. And all of that together, I think the widespread of AI in education and learning, and in the world maybe even, may be so harmful because we're getting all those resources out of the earth, we throw them away, we let people suffer in taking care of that problem and that waste. And I think that's a problem that we really need to address.
So the first comment on the environmental harm, 30-second rebuttal to that if you have. What is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
I work in sustainable and renewable energy. And we are doing, so we're taking action, engineering innovation, specifically for that area. And as a nice next alignment, we include solutions for data centers to make them more green. So there's a combination there. And the nice thing, well, the necessary thing, I should say, is that we need AI in order to prototype more rapidly so that we really see the efficiency through simulations for these complex solutions. But we are getting there. So, turning to you.
If there's another comment on that, if not, Donald wants to say something as well before we go back to the floor. So there's no one else on environment. Okay, Donald, very quickly. 30 seconds, please.
I'm always amused when people fly from all over the world to a conference and claim that they're great on climate change.
Digital.
Order, you can't...
But let me say something else. I refer you to the research. So you're right on the training data. It drains a lot of energy, but once that's done, it's a one-off hit. There's a paper published 2 months ago that really digs deep here. When you produce one page of text or one image using these tools, there's a 3 orders of magnitude saving in energy compared to the traditional paper or other tools used. So look at the research here. There's a lot of things floating around, a lot of mythology about this stuff. The truth of the matter is it saves energy. And online learning, let's have more of that, so we're not flying all over the world to courses and doing it properly.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, thank you. Any more comments?
Doesn't matter in that.
Yep, to the left there, gentleman, standing by the TV.
Yeah, thank you. I find it very interesting that the focus is so much on truth, reliability, and everything. And I just keep realizing that I see more lies, really, in a TikTok feed every day than I've seen in wrong answers from ChatGPT over the last year. And the same goes for LinkedIn, the same goes for X, which I don't visit anymore, and any AI trained on that content can only be the worst kind of technology that's there. So before we consider banning AI, we should probably consider banning stupidity and social networks altogether.
Response from those for the motion?
Again, no one's talking about banning anything. I think it's more about responsible use of and figuring out where the harm is and whether it does more harm than good. No one was talking about banning. There was no babies, there was no bathwater, there was no banning. And I think that's something that we need to keep very strongly in mind. And I agree, there's a general issue about the stupidity around, especially online, where we feel safe. But that's my other piece around this. We need the skills to be able to interact with tools to make sure that there is reduced harm, but until we're at that stage at all, we do have more harm than good.
Thank you, Beth. There was another hand, I think, further up. Yeah. Here, please. Where's the mic?
Hi. So just specifically on the motion, it's the widespread implementation of AI in learning. So I'm actually quite pessimistic about things. I think implementation of AI in politics and media will result in social decohesion and end of the human race. But briefly before that, learning, material science, and medicine, it's going to supercharge it. Maybe not in an equitable way at first, but supercharging learning, I don't think can do more harm than good.
Thank you for that comment. We have another hand, I think, just by the studio people there.
Hey, Dave Tucker, founder of Glean. We're one of the sponsors on the screen there. I've worked with students with disabilities for the last 10 years. So Donald, your comments about the life-changing power of AI really struck a chord with me. And I think if we ask ourselves, well, what do we want for learners? What's the ultimate goal? Surely it's autonomy, that people can have agency, can learn themselves. And the very first step of that is access to information, which AI brings us. It powers Google. It powers many of the things that Donald talked about. So my question is, what is the goal for learners, and what is the harm that you're predicting that AI is suddenly going to cause?
Tim or Beth, response to that?
Yeah, I'll go back. I don't know how many heard Beth's wonderful chairing of the opening discussion on, was it only last night, where she was championing the power of critical thinking and the importance that we liberate the human energy, the mind, our physicality. And I think that the case we were trying to put was around, firstly, the nature of the data that has been used to create the systems. And I was fascinating to know, I don't know, Donald, if you've used Baidu's Wudao, because I think some of the Chinese AI systems, particularly for learning, have a great deal of value in them. We're not saying don't use it at all, far from it. It's focusing on the balance in terms of, is that data that is running those systems going to be generated in a way that will enable a change in power relationships? Is it going to enable, yes, the people with disabilities, it's fantastic the work's being done. The irony is, I always used to say, digital tech in general, AI in particular, has much more value for those of us who have more disabilities than those of us who have fewer disabilities. But the question is, are they going to have access to it?
Well, and additionally, so over the summer I was actually asked to do a very deep dive into some of the darker scenarios of things that could happen. It's a scary place to hang out. It's somewhere I needed to hang out to be able to see what could regulation do to counteract it. But some of the things that we're already seeing that scare me, especially for people with disabilities, are the ones around those who have to have any kind of wearable and those who have to have any kind of iris scanning, anything to do with implants, and have to rely on those, and the ability to which even already some of these are being mismanaged, hacked to a degree that is very scary, the way that they can then be also repurposed for other things, especially looking at iris scanning, especially looking at eye movement and eye scanning, which a lot of these tools that are doing such great work now to support learners are needing to use. Some of the nefarious uses for that are some of the scarier things, because we're talking about widely a group of people that cannot defend themselves in a way that other people can.
Could I just add, I used to teach, believe it or not, in a computer science department, a bit about robotics. And I often used to begin my undergraduate lectures with, would you design a robot with a disability?
Any answers to that question in the room tonight?
Same with AI.
Yeah, we have a few more moments left, so does anyone have anything else to add? Yes, I see some, two more there, or three. We can take those three, yeah.
Would you like some? Okay.
It's not working. Okay,
yeah.
Now it's working. Okay, so I think that AI in learning will do more harm than good if we implement it now. But not because AI is bad, it's because we, as learners, are not ready for it. Our learners are used to being taught. They are not used to think critically. They don't really fully understand their needs or how to learn. They don't know study techniques. And what's more, they are not used to setting for themselves educational goals. They are always given these goals. They have curricula throughout school and exams to pass. And AI has the potential to revolutionize learning, yes, but first we need to prepare our learners for this revolution. So at present, AI in learning might do more harm than good.
Thank you. 30 seconds just to give you one.
And then I add something?
Yes, please, just very quickly. Between the two of you, 30 seconds.
Okay. So I think it is very important to use something from the start, and I can see it with my 12-year-old son. He uses the Snapchat, and the thing why I refer to Snapchat is because it had a bot, and the bot would say, look, why don't we go on a date? which is really strange for a bot to say to a 12-year-old. But what he did, my son, was talk to his fellow students in his class and say, hey, look what it did here. And they taught themselves to make a distinction between when a bot makes sense or when it doesn't. And then, of course, we as parents, we were supporting him as well in that. But so I fully believe that as a teacher, you must provide the skills, you must learn them how to use AI, but it's very important that we do it at the start, immediately, as a coach en route.
Very briefly, we've got two more comments. Yeah.
This is actually a very good question, to be serious for a moment, because but it's a mischaracterization of what's happening. Actually, what we're seeing now is when you get good learning science, good pedagogy around learning as a process, we know what research says, and you feed that pedagogy into the back-end models, it becomes a good teacher. Now, if, like my healthcare example, this stuff becomes so powerful pedagogically in the detailed feedback it gives, the motivational features to the students, then it does exactly what you're demanding. It's a good question, but that's exactly the problem it's solving. Honestly, and we've been working on those models for a couple of years. It really is marvelous when it works.
Thank you, Donald. And there were two more hands, I thought. Do you have the microphone already? If so, please speak, whoever has it. I can't see. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much for the conversation. And I wanted to add that it's in our human nature to be afraid of something new, of the change. But it will not stop the change. It will not stop the progress. And we are talking now about the progress, about using AI for the progress. And also, I wanted to make a statement here that we are talking not about the harm, we are talking about precautions we need to take into consideration when we are using a new tool. And that's it, it's not about the harm. Harm is when people are using it for some bad reasons, but it can be used, it can be connected to any instrument, but it's about precautions, not about the harm.
Thank you for that comment. And coming to a row in front, I think I saw, yeah, there you go. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, just very briefly, it depends how we define harm. I think of the use of AI in military usages, learning there. You think of the increasing inequalities it's going to create in the world, the poorest and the most marginalized who don't have control of or access to or use of. We could have a long discussion.
The military didn't start with AI. It was already there. Thank you very much.
We don't have much time.
That's not going to mean it won't exacerbate.
Order. Let's not get back into it. It's on the floor for now. Yeah, there you go. Please, over to you.
Yeah, for me, I've been looking at this, the issue we were debating here, and it says the House believes that the widespread implementation of AI in learning. And it occurs to me that actually the arguments have been so powerful on both sides, because if it was the House believes in the widespread use of AI in learning now does more good than harm, then I think I would be 100% with you, Donald and Inga. But the implementation is the word that I've got an issue with, and the implementation right now is the word I've got an issue with. Because if we want AI to carry on doing, which we as teachers, educators, learning people have done in the past, potentially it's just going to be delivering more content, more click now, more areas. Whereas if we can actually harness it, Donald, as you say, to actually do the things that we need it to do in learning, it's going to do absolutely more good. But right now, if we use it in the way that we've been using education in the past or learning in the past, I'm not 100% sure. With all my heart, I want to believe and vote against this, but I'm not 100% sure I can.
Well, right now we are out of time, and it's just time left. Very, very briefly, please. Yeah. We can't hear you, so we need to get a microphone to you, and if you can just be 30 seconds, we really need to wrap this all up.
Oh, hello? Hey, can I just jump in and interrupt the other guy and ask a question really quickly?
Very quickly.
Okay, cool, thank you. Okay,
Mr. Speaker.
So Professor Unwin made a really good point that I don't think there was a response to. In the UK, we know even before
One
even
second,
before
one second, please.
ChatGPT,
Please, wait.
Yes?
There was a gentleman here at the front who was supposed to speak, and you kind of usurped
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Are you two working together? Are you AI? Are you a bot or something for him?
Yeah, no, I'm here. No, it'll be really quick, I promise. We know in the UK, plagiarism is way worse than any university will admit. And that was before ChatGPT. In other countries, Australia, they have a better picture of it.
Correct.
As an instructional designer, I know that academic plagiarism is way worse than anyone will admit. When academics produce lectures, and it's awful, but it happens.
Was Donald's an AI presentation?
Is what I'd like to hear a response to. There was a cartoon about this, where the student is pretending to write their paper.
What's your question?
And then the academic, I'm getting there. The academic is
Get there now, please.
The academic's pretending to respond to this. Is there a risk that ChatGPT will produce a kind of hyperinflation of knowledge where, and I'm sorry if this is a tasteless example, knowledge will be like money in the Weimar government and will just be, it won't be worth anything but to, use as wallpaper?
Great question, thank you. And there's a gentleman in front who also had a comment. You have the mic still?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's a question to all of you, and it's a Boolean question, so yes and no, because I think the question part was very much biased for pro-mention, and I think the equality of arms obliges me to pose this question. So when you speak about harm, you have to speak about harm reduction. So we actually want to maximize the good and minimize the harm. And my question is, and I ask this to AI itself, whether the AI itself can minimize the harm of AI in learning. And I got very, very, very interesting answers. So my question is to all four of you, please say either yes, no, or abstain, whether the AI in the long run can reduce the harm of AI in learning. Thanks.
Well, I'll use my power as chair to allow very briefly all of you to give your comments on that, and then we'll hear from the floor where the House stands tonight. So, Beth?
No, thanks to autonomous agents.
I don't think I can answer that because we haven't got the evidence really to make a judgment on it.
Inge?
I would go for yes, it can. It's just a parameter and algorithms. So
And Donald, very briefly, please.
Yes, Jan LeCun has written loads about this, and he's the guy in charge of AI for Facebook. He was saying that what people don't realize is you don't see what you don't see. It does a magnificent job already of preventing harm. It polices itself. And that is a good question because it's already succeeded in doing so and will continue to do so.
Thank you, Donald. So it's time now for our vote, the final vote of the night. And the motion was, or is today, this House believes that the widespread implementation of AI in learning will do more harm than good. How does this House vote now? For the motion?
We increased.
It has increased, so they've debated very well. Just to check if there are any abstentions in the room, because I can't take it for granted that everyone else is voting against. Any abstentions? Not that many abstentions, so I think it's very clear that the motion has not passed tonight, and that Donald and Inge have successfully defeated the motion. However, I think everyone on the panel tonight has won because you were able to convince quite a large number of people to change their minds. So a big round of applause, please, for all our speakers. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. There will be drinks from now, I think, in the Marcel bar. So enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you.